Good morning, my loves. Welcome back. So today we are talking about composite again. And a planet that we haven't looked at yet is Mars. Mars and composite. What does Mars and composite mean for the relationship, depending on what house it falls into? And before we get going, let's look at what Mars stands for in astrology. Mars is the masculine principle. Mars is our drive. It's how we push forward in life. It also is an expression of our ego identity. And obviously, when we look at it from that perspective, in relationships, Mars can be a factor that brings a lot of tension, because Mars is how we show our individuality, right? How we show and express our individuality in the way we move through the world. So it is advisable that our Martian energy, which is also the masculine energy, right? We can look at it from the perspective of divine masculine. It is important here that we are on the same page, right? That we align. And Mars is thriving in certain areas of the chart more than in others. This is true for the birth chart, but also for the composite chart or the Davidson chart. By the way, you can, of course, use these analyses that I do for the composite chart for the Davidson chart. You can apply it. I do apply it in a similar way. The difference for me between Davidson and composite basically is just the expression that the chart itself has, what the meaning of the chart, right? I have a separate video for that. I'm not going to go into it here. I have a separate video about the difference between synastry, Davidson, and composite, particularly Davidson and composite. So let's get going. The first house, Mars in the composite first house. Now, this is an interesting placement. It is a natural placement, particularly if the couple has common goals, right? This is a really beautiful placement if the couple has common goals. If the intention of the couple is we're moving in the same direction, we are moving towards the same goal. However, if these two individuals that come together have a different idea of where they want to move to and have a different idea of doing life, this placement you will butt heads. You will butt heads with this placement, and it will be in a relationship where you constantly fight. Because if you don't have the same direction, if these two individuals in this relationship do not have the same direction, they don't want to go in the same direction, they don't want to live the same kind of life, they don't have the same identity. And when I say they don't have the same identity, of course, the two people don't have the same identity, but our identities match, right? We identify as travelers, we identify as, I don't know, the traditional role model, right? The traditional relationship where the woman stays at home and takes care of the children, takes on the feminine, classic feminine and female role, because there's a difference between feminine and female. And then the man, is doing the opposite. If these would be identities that match, right? But if we don't have identities that match, like for example, one person wants the 9-to-5 kind of life, and the other person wants the travel life, where we're going to live in Bali for a little bit, and then we're living there for a little bit. This is a placement that, this can break the relationship. I'll say this here. And if it doesn't break the relationship, you will suffer. This is going to be a placement of suffering. So be really clear with anything in the first house. It is always an energy of life direction. And specifically with Mars, the lesser malefic, with Mars, the lesser malefic still a malefic, the energy is like, I want my way. And if I want my way in the relationship and I don't care where you want to go, or I can't see where you want to go, I find it ridiculous. I'm like, well, even if I think, okay, it's lovely where you want to go, but I can't see myself going there. All the love that you have for each other, all the love, and you might have big love, big romance, all of it. You might have all of that, but you do not want to go in the same direction. My loves, reconsider. Reconsider. By the way, even though this video is not about it, it's not about aspects, but if you, for example, have a planet in the first house, let's make it a malefic. Let's say Saturn is in the first house. I know we're talking about Mars, but just for the fun of it. Saturn is in the first house, and then we have Mars in the 4th, or Mars in the 10th, or Mars in the 7th. It will be a similar manifestation, probably even harder because we have Saturn in the 1st. But let's say, okay, Mercury in the 1st, and then Mars in the 4th, squaring the 1st house, right? Squaring the 1st house, Mars opposing the 1st house with any planet, and Mars squaring from the 10th house. It's gonna feel similarly. Different direction issues. We have direction issues here. So either you find a way to redirect, which is possible. It's not impossible, because obviously we can have identity shifts in life, right? So maybe one of the partners is shifting their identity. Make sure it's the identity you want to shift into, you're not adapting just because you want to stay with that partner. That will also be a failure. I do not advise you to do that. But if you do your inner work and you realize, wait a minute, I don't really want to live that 9 to 5. That was my shadow self. I really actually want to live the treble life. And I'm allowing myself to do it, right? I'm going there. I'm like, I'm going to make it happen. And then you align again with your partner. Well, that is what I call divine union, right? We came together to help each other, heal each other. That obviously would be a manifestation of this aspect that then would work. But again, that requires you to do deep inner work. Anyways, I don't want to stay with the first house for too long. Already 8 minutes in. So next is the second house. Now, second house, Mars in the second house is in Mars energy, the energy of the masculine in a feminine area, in a rather feminine area, right? Because the feminine, the second house has a higher feminine frequency. There's always masculine present, right? But when we look at the houses, when we look at the layout of the houses, we go from masculine to feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, right? First house masculine, second house feminine, third house masculine, fourth house feminine. Main energy, right? There is, of course, like I said, always masculine energy present as well. Now, the second house is all about worth and value. So when we start at the bottom, the basics, we look at it from the perspective of your worth, your understanding of your worth, right? Your understanding of, I am a worthy person. And I know this sounds all so simple, but let me tell you, what I've came to understand, specifically through the work I've been doing with people, is that people understand the concept of self-worth, but the embodiment is a completely different ballgame. And this is often the problem when we have Mars in the second house. Because Mars in the second house can really trigger this in both people, those self-worth issues, right? Like, where have we not integrated our self-worth? And where are we not living from that place of self-worth? Specifically when it comes to money. Because money in the society we live in is a representation of worth. And when Mars is here, Mars can trigger this in both people, but specifically in one person it will be triggered. And then, of course, this is always a reflection, right? Where we reflect back, and then we will have to deal with money issues, certainly here. A positive higher manifestation of this aspect could be that this is a couple that is really working hard to make money, to become successful, to live a good life, right? If we have the same idea of life, which is important here, right? Because we have to have common values. If we do not have common values, common core values, this one is another one that will punch us in the gut. Because common values are foundational. You know, we always talk about love, 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 love. You know, love is all you need. Well, this is true to a certain extent, but it is unfortunately not true when it comes to making a relationship work. Because we can have love for each other, but we can also at the same time not have the same values. And that is okay. And then we can still love the person, and we can let them go lovingly. Because otherwise we will at some point or the other enter the stage of suffering again. Because we love them, so we lower our standards or adjust our standards to theirs. And we don't want to. These are not our standards. If there's one person that wants to live the high life, and then there's another person that just wants to live the simple life. Yes, certainly we'll learn a lot, and we came together to learn, but that doesn't mean, you know, I hear a lot from people that, we came together for me to learn that having money is not necessary, you know, all we need is love. This may be true. This may be true for you, but that doesn't mean that it's true for everyone. Maybe some people, they want to live that so-called high life, and that's what they came here to do. And maybe they come from a family where living the high life was not a thing. It was not important. It was like looked down upon. It was like, oh no, you know, rich people are bad. And then even though you would like to live that life, you're going to find a partner that also thinks that rich people. But you still want it. Now, what are you here to learn? Well, maybe you're here to learn that you got to trust your desires. And maybe that's why you came together. You had to learn to stand up for what you actually want, allowing yourself what you want, and not thinking you're bad because you want that. This is particularly a second house manifestation because we're talking about worth and value and money. And Mars. Mars is our drive, right? It's like how we push forward in life. And Mars in the second house is specifically in an aspect that maybe has some squares going on with other planets, specifically Venus. Could be a manifestation of exactly what I just described. There are obviously always other manifestations available here, but the whole idea is worth, value, valuables. How do our values translate into our valuables, and how do we push forward, and how do we hold back, and where do we blow up because we've been holding back? Because that's what can happen with Mars a lot, where Mars holds back, and then Mars explodes. Now, Mars in the third composite. The third house is the place of what we call the lower mind, right? Like basic understanding of life, basic thought process, early life conditioning, early life education. And Mars is, again, pushing forward. Mars is not the planet that holds back. Mars just goes. Mars is instinctual. Mars is not intuitive. Mars is instinctual. Venus is intuitive. So Mars is also connected to our primal needs and primal ways of expressing ourselves. And if two people do not have the same basic understanding of thinking, of looking into the world, also educational, when it comes to education, when we have very, very, very different early life conditioning, early life education come together here, that Mars can bring up a lot of arguing about basic things. And this can be a relationship where the couple fights a lot, if there is no understanding of, or no common understanding of very basic things in life. And also the third house rules your immediate environment, right? Your social circle. And if Mars, or if the couple gets along well in this area, meaning they actually have the same basic understanding of how to live, they have a common social circle, this might be a very active couple, right? They are out and about, always chatting, always at a party or an event, going there and there. It's got to be a very active couple, right? So this is a more positive, a higher manifestation of this aspect of Mars in the third house. Now Mars in the fourth house, Mars coming into a more feminine area again. And again, I explained in the beginning what I mean by feminine era. I mean that each house has a feminine and masculine expression, but one is always more dominant in a house. And in the fourth house, the feminine is more dominant. And when Mars comes into a more feminine, dominant area, Mars doesn't feel as comfortable. And so Mars can often express itself in its lower vibration. It's not necessary, but it is more likely. Now, Mars in the fourth can bring disputes in the home. Again, if we are not, for example, if you're not having the same idea of raising a family, of being in a family, of creating a family, Mars here can bring major resistance, major arguments, fights about what's right and wrong, how to live life, and what often can happen here is that the harmony goes out the window with Mars here. Specifically, not necessarily if Mars is well aspected, that is not necessarily the case, but if there are aspects that are more difficult, like squares and oppositions, even conjunctions can do this. If we have that to Mars in the fourth house, this is usually a Mars that throws the harmony out the window. Like the harmony, it's harder to come by. And even if you're not arguing, this is not just about arguing. Even if the couple is not arguing, there's still a feeling, because fourth house, house of the moon, feeling, we're feeling strongly in this area. The feeling is dominant and we'll not feel good. We feel like something is always out of balance. Even though, I love this person, I love being around them, but something just doesn't feel right. There is not necessarily, we don't feel unsafe, but there is this discomfort that we just can't seem to shake. There's this level of discomfort that we can't seem to shake. We don't feel like fully like this. There's always a little tension there, right? Like tension. Let's say Mars has no aspect, or even better, Mars has like some very favorable aspects, like trines. Mars will hardly be noticeable actually in this area, because it will be very integrated and work smoothly, because it is an instinctual energy. So if things work smoothly, we have the same idea of raising a family, this Mars may just help us to have more energy for the family, for the kids, for the energy. We will just have more energy reserves in that case. Now Mars in the fifth is a bit of a continuation of the fourth in a way, where we have if we have the same idea of raising our children, this can be a very beautiful placement. Also, if we both like the same activities, we both like to express our bedroom energy in a similar way, we will have a lot of fun with this aspect. This can be a very favorable aspect. However, if we do not have the same idea of raising children, and we do not have a similar interests or a similar idea of what fun means, this can be a placement that really spoils the fun. And I think I said this in the Saturn video. It doesn't spoil the fun in the same way where Saturn is harsh and cold. There's no coldness here, but it's just like, oh, they really enjoy this. They really like this. You know, you have a couple that there's one person that loves to party. They like to stay out until 5 in the morning, and the other one's more like a homebody. And when you have this placement, they just think like, what's wrong with you? One person might think, oh my God, you're so boring. Why? And the other person might think, well, are you still a child? Are you a teenager? Can be a tricky placement. And again, this is going to be magnified if we have aspects that are not favorable to Mars here, like squares or oppositions, and also conjunctions. Now, Mars in the 6th house. Mars in the 6th, generally, I don't want to say the heavier energy is more potent here, but from my experience, it is from looking at charts, right? Specifically, if we live in the consensus reality, if we live in the 9 to 5 consensus reality, we will experience the Mars placement in the 6th house in the composite chart heavier. There's a lot of duty, a lot of, doing energy. We have to, like, the chores, you got to do this, we have to do this. Why didn't you do this? Have you done this? It is all about that. And often what we tend to lose a little bit here is the desire for each other, the bedroom desire, the desire to be together. It can become all about duty, like, did you do your job properly? So it can be a rather difficult placement. Where it can help is we have more energy reserves to do the chores, to be dutiful, right? To be of service. Here we have to though also be careful when it comes to health, the emotional health of the couple, the emotional mental health of the couple, because the lower energy of Mars, if it is expressed, can really tear us down mentally, emotionally, and also physically. So this can be a rather difficult placement. Now, if you want to see house 7 to 12, you have to come back next week because I will upload that video next week. Now, if you have any questions about what I just talked about, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. And if you want a personal reading, click on the link and book it. Link is in the description box. And if you want to work with me one-on-one on a coaching basis, I'm happy to have a little chat with you about that. And yeah, other than that, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video.